Jarvis, unplug the Ethernet cable. It's safe to say that Arc System Works making a new Marvel fighting game was on no one's bingo card for 2025. Almost no one's bingo card, but we'll get to that later. I wish Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls nothing but success, and I hope that the team behind it knows how to balance a fighting game. But what if I told you that this wasn't the first time Marvel tried to get a new fighting game off the ground? What if I told you that Marvel approached the developers of Mortal Kombat and Injustice, NetherRealms Studios, about making a new fighting game?
What if I were to purchase fast food and disguise it as my own cooking?
This rumor floated around the internet in 2021, and most did not think much of it. Why would Disney go to a studio owned by Warner Brothers, their direct competitor, to make a fighting game? After the announcement of Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, I decided to look into this rumor, and there's a chain of events that gives this rumor more weight than you might think. Full disclaimer, a lot of what I'm about to say is pure speculation, so I'm either going to be right on the money, sounding like Charlie doing the whole Pepe Sylvia thing, or somewhere in between. The rumored NRS Marvel game happened sometime between 2018 and 2022. Disney and Marvel wanted more games. While the games announced and released covered all sorts of categories, there was a notable lack of fighting games after Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite failed to impress. NetherRealms, being the only prominent Western fighting game developer, were potentially approached by Marvel to get a fighting game off the ground. Next question is, why go to NRS? Aren't they owned by Warner Bros., who also own DC, Marvel's direct competition? The truth is, NRS was almost sold by Warner Bros. In 2020. In 2018, AT&T finished the merger with Warner Bros., becoming Warner Media because antitrust laws are dead. After the merger, Warner Bros. Acquired around $150 billion worth of debt from AT&T. Throughout the early 2020s, yeah, we can now say the early 2020s, Warner Media needed to find ways to pay that off. One way was by selling NRS. They were entertaining the idea of selling them, and EA, who has published Marvel games in the past, were up to buy. I was not going to drink today, but then I had to remind myself that Marvel Nemesis Rise of the Imperfects was a video game. Seriously, I'd rather drink a milk diarrhea protein smoothie than ever think about that miserable excuse of a fighting game ever again. NRS being up for sale was one of the bigger reasons why NRS went from Mortal Kombat 11 to MK1 instead of doing an Injustice 3. If I had to wager, sometime during that time frame of NRS being up for sale is what caused Marvel to reach out to them for a new game. Ultimately, Warner Bros. Decided to keep NRS. From my understanding, after the kinda bad but I like it MK vs. DC sold well, the MK IP was sold to Warner Bros., which, along with DC Comics, Tom and Jerry, and the Looney Tunes, is one of the bigger IPs that Warner Bros. Fully owns. Also, Zaslav has something against the Looney Tunes. Did he hire an escort to do a sexy Lola Bunny roleplay for him, and he's ashamed to let that truth be known? Warner does want to make more out of the MK franchise, but it still needs the games more than anything else. Plus, while Mortal Kombat 1 underperformed for WB, NRS games are one of the few victors in Warner Bros. Gaming catalog. So whatever chance there was at NRS leaving Warner ended right then and there. Plus, let's be real, if EA bought them, NRS would have died like so many other companies underneath EA. The news of an NRS Marvel game started showing up around 2021. Someone must have caught wind of Disney approaching NRS for a game and ran it as a story in a fairly slow year, or Disney went to NRS with the Marvel idea in 2021 and it did not get much further than that because Warner Bros. Does not like the idea of their own company making a game for their direct competitor. A wise man once said, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." Go ahead and text that girl. Ed Boon did do a little bit of trolling on Twitter about the rumor, and that's where the story of NRS Marvel ends. Sometimes news like this gets delayed. In 2024, it was found that Disney tried to buy out Nintendo in 2016, then Nintendo laughed them out of the room.
See, you just told everyone your deepest, darkest secret!
Dude, come on, I think you're overreacting a little bit.
You must be so embarrassed!
There is this image floating around, but that's faker than a Soapland girl's affection for her patrons. I'm kind of glad NRS never made a Marvel fighting game with drab colors, unappealing character models, stiff gameplay, and a nonsense story. That's what Marvel's Avengers was for. This whole situation sounds like a bunch of hoopla! I said it sounded like a bunch of hoopla! Hoopla!
Fatality.
Stuff like this happens all the time. Sometimes you have an idea, you go pitch the idea, and it gets nothing further than some emails and meetings. It's like you and your buddies making plans to go bowling after a night at the club. It sounds nice, but everybody in the squad is going to be making out with the toilet long before your Uber arrives. At the end of the day, NRS Marvel is just a rumor unless we get direct confirmation from someone. Personally, I would not be surprised if Disney did approach NRS at one point, but it didn't get much further than that. So the story of NRS Marvel ends there for now. And that brings us to the road to Marvel vs. Capcom Collection and Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. According to interviews, talks of bringing back the Marvel vs. Capcom games happened in 2022. That's when the 1-up arcade machine dropped and dropped everybody's dreams. Then those dreams came roaring back when Capcom announced the collection in 2024. What did Scott Summers say?
Dreams don't die!
Capcom, and to a lesser extent Marvel, have hinted at a future game. Hell, one of the new songs in the collection is called Promise of Reunion. This makes Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls even more surprising. It sounds like Sony is the one who masterminded this project, as they have a clear interest in fighting games, even though you don't need a PS5 to play Marvel Tokon, but I digress. I could not find when this title started development. I assume sometime around 2022 or 2023, which is also when the Marvel vs. Capcom collection was being worked on, as well as Street Fighter 6. It was probably easier to get a console-exclusive game made by ArcSys instead of Capcom. Capcom wants their games to be multi-platform, plus they wanted to make sure Street Fighter 6 didn't repeat the same errors of 5. With how big 6 is, I think Capcom has succeeded in that regard. The last thing of note here is a curious Discord post from 2024. This post accurately called the ArcSys Marvel fighting game the MVC Collection, Street Fighter being in City of the Wolves, and Street Fighter 6 Seasons 2 and 3 before they were announced. The only inaccuracy is that Marvel Tokon was going to be announced in 2024, but that got delayed until 2025, more than likely to not flood the market between the collection and a new fighting game. This post alleges that Marvel vs. Capcom 5 and Capcom vs. SNK 3 are in development. Again, the seeds of both have been planted. Now, on paper, having so many games releasing in a short span of time is a good way to flood your market and thin your player bases. In practice, Street Fighter, Marvel, and SNK have much different markets and would not cannibalize each other too much, especially if they were spaced out well enough. Street Fighter 4 and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 managed to coexist, with the latter only petering out due to reasons beyond Capcom's control. Disney does not care about player retention or anything like that. There's hella Marvel games out there competing against each other on the App Store. They only care about the Marvel brand being out there. So if Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls and Marvel vs. Capcom 5 are competing against each other, that's still two games with Marvel in them. The question now is if Capcom is moving forward with Marvel vs. Capcom 5. Was Capcom aware of Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls? Is MVC 5 still in development? Was it ever in development in the first place? Was Street Fighter 6's huge success, particularly in Japan? Does Capcom even want to make a new fighting game right now? Only time will tell. And I don't know who's in charge of it, but if these two X-Men games from the Genesis to come back to modern platforms, that would be awesome. Those games were the best. So there's a look at a potentially lost Marvel fighting game finished, and I hope you enjoyed it. I really do believe that Marvel did approach NRS at one point for a fighting game, but it just never got off the ground other than a few emails. Or who knows, maybe this whole thing is just made up and I fell for a very elaborate troll. I was on the fence about making this video for a while now because there just wasn't a whole lot to go off of, but after Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls got announced, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna dust off that script and making a video, and now, here we are. And before we wrap up here, here's one last toast to 2XKO. You died before you even released. So leave me some comments. Do you think NRS would have made a really cool Marvel fighting game? Would you have preferred it to an ArcSys or even a new Capcom Marvel fighting game? Do you think we dodged a bullet? Or do you think those Marvel vs. Capcom 5 and Capcom vs. SNK 3 games were actually in the works? Let me know down there in the comments. And while you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications on future videos. And feel free to follow me on the social medias like Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok @ZMings. And with that, I will see you in the next video. Bye everybody, take care.